Marching down O'Connell Street with a starry plow on high. Here comes the citizens' army with a fist raised to the sky. Leading them was a mighty man with a mad rage.
Okay, so here's the storyboard. This pretty much is just, you'll see a whole bunch of little icons popping up on your screen. That's just explaining how exactly the story will go. So with this, for demonstration purposes, I'm putting in a whole bunch of icons as we speak. But the main thing that you want to do is make sure that you got your storyboard in place at all times, because the whole premise of the storyboard is so that when you're filming, you know what shot, where it's being taken place, what the storyline is, and then you'll have who will be on the project at that time, which we'll go into in the next 2-3 segments. This is a good way of planning ahead of time, because of the fact that when you're planning ahead of time, you can never fail, because if you have the story in place, the story will tell itself. So when you're planning the storyboard will define everything after you're filming. So this completes the first segment, and then you're gonna see that we're gonna go into the next segment at about 15-20 seconds. So in this segment, we're going to be discussing the short film budget. Pretty much it's the title, the length, the format that you will need, what you're shooting, what needs to be done after shooting, and then the distribution is when it gets into the hands of the person that's requiring it. The people who's going to be on it are the director, the producer, the production manager, the director of photography. Now, you'll see on the budget summary, there's pre-production total, production total, post-production total, contingency, and grand total. These are just how much you're going to be charging for each step of the way. You could work alongside with the people to see what their budget is. So when you're really doing that, you have to go by what their budget is. We can't make a specific price point for them because of the fact that they'll have a budget that they have to follow. The budget breakdown that you'll see on this screen, this is getting into the nitty-gritty of things. Some of this stuff you might not have to use. Now, according to the budget that was put out in place for the customer, you have to kind of assemble things as it goes along. Because if they have a $10,000 budget, you have to try and use as much money as possible without being under or over. So this is, now we're getting into the production breakdown. These are just the equipment, how much it would cost to rent them, but in your case, you're not going to be renting them. You'll have them most likely in your possession already. Now, I know that I discussed that you only needed a camera, microphone, lighting, probably a green screen and some other stuff. So that's the basics of this. So when you're doing it, just go with what you have. Don't add stuff as you go into production. Now, with this, you'll see that I'm putting it into departments. The art department, you might not have to use, primarily due to the fact that it's more for filming, like major film production. The location expenses you might have to do depending on where you're filming, which means location rental, studio rental, truck van rental, car rental, fuel, public transportation, meals, etc. So with this, you just gotta be aware of the budget. Now we're going to discuss the production personnel and the pricing for that. Now, you also got to keep in mind you're going with the budget on this as well. So when you're doing a production like this, the main people that you have to pay are the director, the production manager, and the assistant camera person, along with the director of photography. Other people depends on who you have on. So you just got to make the pricing with that. And now, as I said, this is just going back into the production personnel, going based on the budget and how many people you have working alongside you in order to make that production possible. You could go from anywhere. For the lower people, I would say probably $15.50 or possibly more or less, depending on what job they have. So you just got to go based on the budget and how much money you'll be profiting. Now, post-production, that's where all the editing comes into place. Now, with this, some of this stuff you might not have to worry about as long as you have the video editing. You can mess around with it as you go along. If you have any questions about the video editing, I'm here and able to help. So, with the video editing, it's about getting the video, the possible editing of the video, and the sound on tip-top order. Now, the lab work, again, depends on what you exactly want to do with it. The main thing you want to have are titles and credits in order to determine, just so when you're putting out content, you're not just making a video, you're actually making a production video, which would be beneficial for you so that you get credit and everybody else on your team gets credit for what you're putting out. So with this, there's going to be three main criteria that you have to do. There's going to be pre-production, post-production, and production. So as you can see, there's going to be rate in SUS, quantity, duration, total cost in time, and cash. With this, the pre-production is just who gets the rights to do that. Production, of course, is going to be your job. Post-production, possibly your job. All this other stuff that I'm seeing on the screen right now as I'm talking, this you might not have to worry about because, again, the administrative costs, that's like the legal work, so you would probably have somebody do that for you or not. And then outreach and impact, that's just making DVDs and stuff. And then this is the top part, is just going back to the first segment that I was discussing. Now, the funding source is secured and the funding source is pending. This is where it really gets technical. You'll probably have a financial advisor or somebody like that who will be dealing with this stuff, because this really isn't part of the job. I just put it in there so it helps define exactly what would be needed for if you have a full production company like what I have, which you'll probably see in the next segment. This concludes this video. Have a good day.
Marching down O'Connell Street with a starry plow on high, here comes the citizens' army with a fist raised to the sky. Leading them was a mighty man with a mad rage in his eye. My name is James Conley, I didn't come here to die. With a fight for the rights of the working man, the small farmer too, to protect the proletariat from the bosses and the screw.